Hi, good morning class. Today we're going to learn how to make macaroni and cheese. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get water boiling. So I have a pan here on the stove. I'm heating the water and then I'm going to measure out macaroni. So macaroni is a term for pasta that is formed into a shape. Traditionally macaroni and cheese is made with elbow pasta. I thought I would try this type of pasta. Some little twisty shapes there. I thought it would be fun. So that's what I'm going to use for the mac and cheese. So my recipe calls for 8 ounces. This is a 16-ounce box. I know that 8 ounces is half of 16. So the way I'm going to figure out which is half a box is I'm just going to get 2 bowls. I'm going to pour the whole box into 2 bowls, and then I'm going to just kind of even them out. So I'm going to set my macaroni noodles, the dry noodles, by my pot of water. When it starts to boil, then I'm going to add it. In the meantime, I'm going to get all my other ingredients ready. So the next thing I'm going to do, because it's going to take some time, is I'm going to grate the cheese. Because you have the milk and pasta and flour, the other ingredients to give a good cheese flavor to your mac and cheese, they recommend. Usually recipes will call for the sharp cheddar. So I'm going to take my block of cheese, grate it onto a cutting board. Then I'm going to get my measuring cup. I got a 2-cup measuring cup. That's the line that I need to fill. According to the recipe, it calls for 2 cups of shredded cheddar, sharp cheddar cheese. So when grating the cheese, I need to hold it firmly, my hand against the cheese grater, the other hand going the other way to press hard enough for the cheese to grate. So now I see my water is boiling. I'm going to go ahead and add my noodles. What I'm going to do is get a wooden spoon, and then I'm just going to give them a little stir so they do not stick. So if your pasta as it cooks, it's going to release starch. So if it starts to boil over, you can turn down the heat just a little bit. You can also sprinkle in some salt. That kind of helps it from boiling over. So I have my cheese ready. Then I'm going to get my milk. I don't want to leave the milk out of the refrigerator, so I'm just going to pour the amount of milk that I need for the recipe, which is 3 cups, into my measuring cup. So I'm using a large measuring cup that holds 3 cups. If you don't have one, you can do 1 cup at a time and pour it into a bowl. I'm using 2% milk. That is what the recipe calls for. If you didn't have 2% milk, you could probably use whole milk, or even 1% milk would be fine. So the cheese that I did not use, I'm storing in a Ziploc bag. I need to make sure that it's wrapped airtight, so I don't want air to get to it because it will cause the cheese to dry out. So also for this recipe, I need 1/4 cup of butter. So 1/4 cup of butter is half a stick of butter. 1 stick of butter is a half a cup. So I'm going to cut off 1/4 of butter, and I'm going to put it in a little dish to set aside. I don't need it yet. A time of 8 minutes when it takes 8 to 10 minutes. So I'm checking it, and it looks to me like it needs a couple more minutes. So I'm looking at my pasta here. As you can see, it's not soft all the way. So while my pasta is cooking some more, I am going to make the roux, which is I'm going to need the butter, which I have measured, in a saucepan. The saucepan is going to be cooking over medium heat. So my recipe calls for 1.5 tablespoons of flour. My issue is that I don't have a half a tablespoon. They do make them, but I have a full tablespoon and I need a half. So to make a half, there's 3 teaspoons and a tablespoon. So I can use 1.5 teaspoons, which is the equivalent or the same as a half a tablespoon. So I need a tablespoon plus 1.5 teaspoons to get 1.5 tablespoons. So to make my roux, I'm going to melt my butter in a saucepan, and I'm going to add my flour. I'm just going to sprinkle it in. We are going to stir and mix the flour. So I have my milk here, and we're going to slowly add that in with the flour and the butter. A little bit at a time. Let it cook because I want to thicken. Too much in, then what happens is I end up with lumps. So I just got to add a little bit in. And make sure it's really mixed in well. There's no lumps, let it cook. And then I can add a little bit more to make the roux. So as you can see, it is starting to form a sauce, and there's a little bit of thickness to it. It will thicken as it cooks, so I'm slowly adding the milk. Once I've added all the milk to my sauce here, I need to let it cook until it is a nice thick sauce like gravy. So my pasta is done. I drained it in the sink, ran water to drain all the starch from the pasta and to keep it from cooking. So I use cold water, and then place it over the saucepan here. I'm going to set it off the burner, but I'm going to use the saucepan kind of as a drip hole while I'm making the rest of the ingredients. With my remaining 2 tablespoons of butter, use the 1/4 cup of butter for the white sauce or the roux, and I use the 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to cook and get a skillet, and I'm going to cook, melt the butter and brown the breadcrumb. So I took my macaroni and I found a casserole pan that would be big enough to hold the noodles that are already cooked. I did spray it with a cooking spray because I don't want the pan to stick, and I know that with the cheese sauce and everything in the pasta, that it's likely to stick. So if you pour your noodles into a casserole pan and it doesn't fit with room for your cheese sauce, then you might want to just get a larger casserole pan. So I have my sauce here, and it's still cooking. I want to get it thick. I do need to be patient. It needs to cook slowly enough that it doesn't burn. So I turned up the heat to a medium-high heat, and I'm just going to let it cook, and then I'm going to brown my breadcrumbs and get those ready. So once my sauce is starting to thicken, then I can get ready to add my cheeses. So I'm going to melt my cheese in. This is the grated sharp cheddar cheese, and this is grated Parmesan. So I'm going to pour those in here. Just try to melt them into the sauce. Just try to let them melt. Make my cheese sauce. A little bit at a time. And then I'm going to add a pinch of paprika, which is just like a little tiny bit. So I preheated the oven to 350 degrees. I put a tray down so in case it spills or a little bit in the oven, it won't cause a mess in the oven, and then I can just clean the tray when I'm done. So I just took the mac and cheese out of the oven. It's ready. I'm gonna try it out. And here it is. Mac and cheese made from scratch.